This guy was as cold and calculated as they come. Maybe we weren't going to get it solved.
It was like the epitome of innocence that had been preyed upon.
This is a case that has no evidence. We didn't have DNA. We didn't have fingerprints.
Step inside the court of law with the new true crime podcast, American Justice.
We realized we have 4 men who answered the same ad for a job on a farm.
My brother Ralph went to interview and he was never seen again.
A podcast that explores impactful crimes and reveals how our justice system works.
You have to consider that there are more possibilities than one.
And sometimes how it doesn't.
We have to find whoever this monster is.
Go in depth into chilling cases and their conclusions in this new true crime series.
You just have a pit in your stomach thinking, how many people are we going to find?
New episodes of American Justice are available every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 381 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing very well.
You are?
Yeah, I've had a good week.
Yeah.
I got out of the house some this week, which is, it's a good thing for me.
That's a big deal around here.
It is. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Roy Watson.
What's going on, Roy?
Fiona Patterson.
Hey, Patterson.
Brad.
Good old Brad.
Tabitha Castaneda.
Hey, Tabitha.
Crystal Ing.
I appreciate that, Crystal.
Catherine Kellum.
What's going on, Kellum?
Julie Hilton jumped out to her highest level.
There's the Hilton and the Hilton fortune.
Well, then we have John Vanderbilt.
Oh, and the Vanderbilt fortune.
Who got some two pretty sizable fortunes there.
Some royalty.
California Monroe.
Hey, the whole state of California right there.
Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
And last but not least, Alyssa Freeword.
Freeword. That's a interesting free word. That's all.
Okay.
It was just interesting.
I thought that was going to go somewhere, and then it just went,
no. Sorry, Alyssa. Appreciate you.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Sarah Vanima.
Wow, thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, appreciate the continued Patreon support. We had a couple of PayPal donations, one from Stephen Reichwalder.
Hey, Stephen.
And one from our very good friend, Andrea Papageorge.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Andrea.
Always brings me coffee at CrimeCon.
She never brings me coffee.
Because you don't drink coffee.
That's exactly
and she knows it. No, she knows this very well.
She does.
So right now on True Crime All the Time, we have our part 2 and final part on Albert Fish. And whew, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't get any easier in part 2.
It does not.
The things that this guy did, letters that he wrote, some of the stuff is stomach turning. It's rough, no doubt about it. He was a bad dude.
He was a very bad dude.
And that's why he is as infamous of a serial killer as he is.
Yeah.
All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We're talking about the disappearance of Evelyn Hartley. Evelyn Hartley disappeared while babysitting for a family in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Her father became concerned when she didn't answer his call, so he drove to the house and found Evelyn's shoes, broken glasses, and pools of blood. But he didn't find his daughter. 7 decades later, Evelyn has never been found, and her case remains unsolved. That is a parent's worst nightmare.
It certainly is. Hey, you ever been in Wisconsin?
I don't think I ever have. And I've been to a lot of places in the U.S.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've been to Wisconsin. I've been to Minnesota, but not Wisconsin.
Okay. Didn't know if you ever went there, went to the Dells and got some cheese and all that stuff.
No.
Because you look like a cheese guy.
I am a cheese. You know I like a lot of different cheeses.
Yeah. You're cheesy like that.
Evelyn Hartley was born on November 21st, 1937. She was just 15 years old when she went missing. Evelyn's parents were Richard and Ethel Hartley. Richard died in 1986, and Ethel passed away in 2002. Evelyn was the youngest of 4 children. Sadly, her brother Richard died in 1946 from polio. And that was a disease back in the day that claimed the lives of a lot of people.
It sure did. If it didn't kill them, it caused a lot of people not to be able to walk.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the only siblings listed on her Find a Grave page. According to the Charlie Project, one sibling lives in Oregon and the other lives in Australia. Richard Hartley worked as a zoology professor at Eastern Illinois University in the 1940s. The family moved to La Crosse, Wisconsin in 1950, and he taught biology at La Crosse State College, now the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse.
You're a big fan of biology.
Yeah, biology's pretty important. Kind of makes everything work.
So you say.
Evelyn's elementary school classmates described her as a smart and friendly girl. At the time of her disappearance, she was a junior at Central High School in La Crosse. She was a straight-A student and was involved in a lot of school activities. Evelyn enjoyed golf, tennis, skiing, swimming, and hiking. She also played the piano and sang in her church choir.
Pretty active.
Yeah, pretty active. I would also say pretty well-rounded. You're talking about a number of different sports, but she was also musically inclined as well. Played the piano, could sing, and let's not forget, a straight-A student.
Impressive.
Evelyn went missing on October 24th, 1953. That night, she was babysitting the 20-month-old daughter of La Crosse State professor Viggo Rasmussen. You don't hear a lot of people named Viggo.
You don't. Kind of unique.
But there's that one actor, right? And his first name Viggo? Viggo Mortensen or Viggo More something. He was in Lord of the Rings. He's been in all kinds of different movies. I want to say his name's Viggo.
I think you're right. He's a good actor.
He is. Very good actor. Rasmussen, his wife, and their 7-year-old daughter were attending the local homecoming game. They decided to leave their youngest daughter, Janice, at home. The Rasmussens had a regular babysitter, but she was also going to the game, so they hired Evelyn as a replacement. You ever do any babysitting?
When I was younger, not a lot. Actually, I think they only used me one time.
Yeah, I can't. First of all, I can't imagine a lot of people hiring you initially. I find it even harder to believe that they would repeat the exercise.
Yeah, it was a one-time deal, So, yeah.
On the evening of October 24th, Evelyn came to their home in the 2400 block of Heschler Drive. She was last seen wearing a plain white blouse with pearl buttons, denim jeans with a side zipper, and cuffs rolled up above the ankle, and white socks. Evelyn had brown hair, blue eyes, was 5'7", and weighed around 126 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She brought her school books with her and planned to study while the baby slept. Around 7:15 p.m., some neighbors heard screaming, but assumed it was children playing. In this same time frame, a neighbor said his dog growled and ran to a window, but, he didn't think much about it. And these are things that we talk about a lot in these types of cases. Now, after the fact, when you find out, okay, something terrible happened, these little innocuous things, they mean something different.
Yes.
But before you have that knowledge, they don't mean anything. If my dog growls, I assume somebody's walking their dog outside.
Or a squirrel goes by or something, right?
Something catches, her attention. And at any given time, especially before the sun goes down, I hear people screaming all around the neighborhood. There's kids running around. They're, or you get here, you start screaming at people.
I do. Doesn't faze you at all.
I don't think anything about it. But I do believe that after a tragic event, some of these people probably, they think about these things in a different light, and they may even have some guilt. Okay, what if I'd have checked on it? Could I have done something? Or would I have seen maybe the person who committed the crime?
Yeah, maybe. But you didn't, because you didn't think it was anything. Like most people wouldn't.
Evelyn was supposed to call home at 8:30 p.m. to check in with her parents, but she didn't. Richard Hartley called the Rasmussen home several times and received no answer, so he decided to drive over to check on his daughter. He found that the doors to the house were locked and the lights and radio were on. He entered the house through an open basement window and discovered a disturbing scene. Baby Janice was sleeping in her crib, completely unharmed. Evelyn was nowhere to be found. It appeared that there had been a struggle. The furniture in the living room was out of order. Evelyn's school books were scattered. It was later reported that the home was not burglarized. One of Evelyn's shoes and her glasses, which were broken, were found in the living room. Her other shoe was at the bottom of the stairs in the basement. All the windows were locked, except one basement window at the back of the house, which, as I just talked about, is how Richard Hartley got inside. According to the Charlie Project, a screen had been removed and was leaning against the outside wall. A short stepladder was positioned at the window. This ladder belonged to the Rasmussens. They had been using it while painting the basement. 3 other windows had pry marks.
So it sounds like somebody tried to break in the other windows, but couldn't, and finally hit this 4th window and had success.
And found a ladder and figured out that that was their easiest point of entry. But, I want to go back to Richard. Obviously, he's very concerned. Evelyn was supposed to call home. She didn't. She's not answering. So he goes over, and I think you get a real sense of his level of concern by the fact that he's willing to go through a basement window.
Yeah. Well, he knows she's supposed to be there. So why isn't she answering the phone? Why isn't she answering the door? The level of concern has to be high.
Yes, and obviously there's no cell phones. There's limited ways back then to get a hold of people. The police found footprints from a pair of sneakers in the living room and basement window box. Evelyn's blood type was found in the home near the basement window and in the yard. There were 2 pools of blood in the yard. One of them was 18 inches in diameter. Investigators found a bloody handprint about 4 feet off the ground on the wall of a garage at a neighbor's house 100 feet from the Rasmussen home. However, the AP reported that bloodstains were found on the cement window well of the home of the neighbor Eugene Downer, as well as fragments from the red corduroy slacks Evelyn was wearing. Authorities believe Evelyn was carried or dragged through the yard, and blood pooled twice when the kidnapper stopped and rested her body on the ground. 18 inches diameter. That's a fairly large pool of blood.
That's a healthy amount. Concerning for sure.
And then you have these bloody handprints and blood stains, fragments from her slacks. There is nothing in any of this to me that appears to be a good sign.
No, I think your level of concern have just shot through the roof, right? When you learn all this.
Yeah. Mrs. Rasmussen, who hired Evelyn, said peeping Toms had been reported in their neighborhood, but they had never caught anyone at their house. Scent tracking dogs followed Evelyn's trail for 2 blocks before losing the scent at Cooley Drive, northeast of the Rasmussen home. Authorities believe she was put into a vehicle at that point. And that happens so very often in these unsolved cases. They bring in the scent dogs, which are amazing at what they do.
They are.
But once a person gets into a car, that's it for the dogs, right? They're not tracking someone from inside a vehicle that's driving down the street. But does that also lend a little more credence to the police's theory, that she was dragged through the yard?
I think it backs it up. When you think about it, where they say they see 2 pools of blood, where it looks like the person probably dragged her, stopped, and then finally carried on to what most likely was the vehicle. And the fact that the dogs could pick up the scent, but then at that same spot, they couldn't go any further because obviously the body was in the car. So it does seem to line up with that theory.
Yeah, I see how they came up with it. You got these, bloody handprints that I'm assuming are heading in that direction. One neighbor claimed they saw a light-colored car circling the neighborhood at 8 p.m. The Rasmussen home was on the outskirts of the city with open ground nearby. Local hunters were asked to be on the lookout, and farmers were asked to search their properties for Evelyn or signs of freshly dug earth. Additionally, the police checked recently dug graves to make sure Evelyn was not placed on top of another person's body. And you don't hear that often in cases, but it does make a lot of sense. We have heard about people taking those types of opportunities to dispose of a body.
It's an easy way to do it, right?
Well, it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to dig your own grave or a grave for someone else, is what I was trying to say. But you know what I'm saying? Digging a grave with a shovel, that's a real undertaking.
It is.
Now, if you've got one that's already been dug that you can use and then maybe just use the shovel to cover the dirt, that's a heck of a lot easier.
Or even if you have to dig out the dirt that was thrown back in, it's easier to remove that dirt than dirt that's been packed down for years and years and years.
Absolutely.
Just ask Cool Hand Luke about that.
But I think the other thing is you're getting a real sense of where they live. Obviously, it's a pretty rural area. A lot of hunters around, or at least a lot of places to hunt would normally mean it's fairly rural. What were you going to say?
Yeah, because they have a lot of farms around there.
Yeah. Pilots searched from above and boaters searched waterways around the city. Around 1,000 officers, Boy Scouts, National Guardsmen, and citizen volunteers participated in ground searches.
Man, that's a healthy amount of people.
That's a lot. I mean, we're usually talking in the hundreds, but to hit 1,000, that is an extremely large turnout. The police also searched vehicles. Their goal was to check every back seat and trunk in the county for bloodstains. They asked gas station attendants to help with searches. Cars that had been checked were to be marked with one of 40,000 printed stickers that said, "My car is okay."
Pretty detailed.
I mean, this is a kind of an amazing operation that's put in place fairly quickly. Now, I don't know how you're checking all these cars. I mean, are you telling me that gas station attendants are just opening up people's trunks and looking in them? I'm assuming there's got to be some question as to whether, hey, can we look in your trunk? Now, the back seat, I get, gas station attendant is filling up the car. Fairly easy to just take a quick peek in the back seat and look for bloodstains. I don't know about trunks, though.
I would think if they get the sticker, the only way to get that is they have to allow the trunk to be searched.
Okay, so you're saying as an incentive, you want the sticker because you don't want to be hassled, right? Every time.
Yeah.
People asking you if they can look in your trunk. If you have nothing to hide, then yeah, you say, sure, look in the trunk, give me my sticker, and let me be on about my way. The attendants were asked to record the license plate numbers of suspicious people or anyone who refused to allow an inspection. And then the police planned to check all cars without stickers. So, I mean, kind of amazing that they were able to get so much help, right? With this search, they've got these gas station attendants, which there were, let's face it, a lot more of back in the day. We don't really have gas station attendants now.
No.
You have someone who sells you your Snickers bar, but there really is no one out there pumping gas.
It's pretty rare.
Unless you live in New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey.
I think they still have to in New Jersey. But you remember in the movies, they had the guy out there, he had the little clicker thing with all the different change in it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they would check your oil. They would wash your windows. They did it all.
I still remember the movie The Jerk.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Martin.
This is your before and after story. Southeastern College can help you prepare for a secure and fulfilling career in the growing healthcare field. We offer a wide range of careers to choose from, so whether you want to be a medical assistant, medical billing and coding specialist, nurse, surgical technologist, or another healthcare career, we've got you covered. Become a vital part of a healthcare team and make a real difference. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
Evelyn's mother went to the crime scene on October 27th and broke down when she saw the bloodstain, saying, per the spokesman review, "We know she isn't alive."
Well, that'd be tough.
It would be tough. I mean, obviously, this is quite a bit of blood.
If she is alive at that time, it probably didn't seem very promising.
Well, no, because think about it. Very little chance that someone's going to take her to the hospital. That would be almost impossible. To try to explain, and then obviously you're upping your chances of getting caught. 2 days after Evelyn disappeared, a man named Ed Hofer reported that around 7:15 p.m. on October 24th, he almost hit a two-toned green 1941 or 1942 Buick that was speeding west. He saw two men and a girl inside. One man was driving. The second was in the back with the girl. She was slumped over with her head leaning against the front seat. He believed he saw them a few minutes earlier, staggering down the street close to where the blood was found, in the Rasmussen's yard. Hofer thought the girl was drunk and the two men were helping her. Since they were holding her arms, he assumed they were on their way to the homecoming game.
So potentially we have two suspects here.
It seems like it, but we also have a witness, right? As we do in many cases, it's what the witness believes they're seeing at the time. I mean, where does your mind go right off the bat? That this is some kind of horrific crime and I'm witnessing it? No, I don't think for most people it would.
So back then, probably no one thought any different. Maybe today with all the true crime listeners, they might look at it a little bit differently.
Well, I think there's something to that. You know, are people today, with the proliferation of true crime, the amount of true crime we watch, listen to, read about, are we a little more suspicious? I would say the answer is probably yes. Hofer's tip was publicized, but his name was withheld for almost 50 years, per the Charlie Project. And why do you think that would be?
I guess you could say for his own safety.
That was my thought. If you really did see the two killers, you don't know who they are. Do you want your name, published in the paper? Would you not become a possible target?
Sure. If you're the witness, let's get rid of the witness.
Several days after Evelyn disappeared, a pair of underwear and a bra that could have been hers were found near the underpass on Highway 14, 2 miles south of La Crosse. These items were stained with blood. A bloody pair of men's trousers was found on the same road 4 miles away, but it's unknown if the pants are connected to the case. According to the Daily Reporter, investigators had also found a pool of blood on a highway south of La Crosse. They also found a man's white shirt torn at the collar in a cemetery east of La Crosse on a road that runs past the Rasmussen home, as well as pieces of fabric and a large shoe print near the home. A pair of size 11 Goodrich sneakers were found just off Highway 14 in the town of Shelby, southeast of La Crosse. Authorities believe they were dumped there shortly before they were found. The soles had a pattern similar to the shoe prints found in the living room of the Rasmussen home and shoe prints found in the dirt outside the home. The blood on the shoes matched Evelyn's blood type. Inside one shoe was a single hair, possibly from an African-American person.
Well, they're finding a lot of things.
Well, yeah, they are. Now, this you would think definitely ties to the case. Does the pair of pants with blood on them found 4 miles away? Not necessarily. Could somebody have thrown them out of a car or Yeah, who knows? But they are finding a lot of things with blood on them, so it is possible.
It is.
That they're all connected. According to the Charlie Project, investigators determined that the style of Goodrich sneakers were called Hood Mogul. The style was sold in Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois. You notice there, Gibbs, they were not sold in Illinois.
They lost out on some sales because I know my cousins would have bought them.
Your cousins in Illinois?
Yes.
The circular wear pattern on the shoes led an officer to believe they were worn by someone who operated a Whizzer motorbike. Okay, Gibbs, do you know what a Whizzer motorbike is?
I do not.
I had no idea what it was, but when I looked it up, I found one from the 1940s on eBay for sale. It's like $2,400.
Wow.
Now, and it is not in good condition, but basically it looks like a regular bike that has a little bitty engine in the middle.
It's like one of the new e-bikes out there today.
Right, except it ran on gas.
Wow.
Rather than electricity.
Whizzer bike.
The wear pattern also suggested the owner might work with machinery. Investigators determined that 2 people had worn the shoes and the second wearer's feet were too big.
How do you determine that?
I don't know. Same tread pattern, but one was elongated. I really have no idea. The impression was a little bit different, a little longer, stretched out. A denim jacket was found within 800 feet of the shoes. It had metallic buttons and bloodstains on the front, back, and sides. The jacket had base metal paint flecks on it and was cut off at the bottom, then re-hemmed with white thread. One of 4 buttons was missing. There was a worn mark through the width of the jacket under the arms, probably from a safety harness. Blast fibers were found in the left-hand pocket, similar to the kind used in scrubbing brushes. I mean, this is really fascinating. If you think about it, there wasn't a lot about how they thought the shoes tied to the Whizzer motorbike, or how this wear pattern suggested, machinery work. But now you've got this denim jacket and there are paint flecks on it. There are some things in the pocket. And then you have this mark that suggests the owner uses a safety harness. I mean, you are, in a way, trying to narrow in on what this person does for a living.
Which is good, because if you can get there, it's going to help you determine maybe some type of pool of suspects.
One investigator concluded, based on the pattern of wear on the jacket, that the owner worked as a steeplejack, a person who climbs chimneys and steeples to carry out repairs. Well, man, we kind of had a feeling it was going to be something that required a safety harness. You were going to be up in the air or climbing or something. You got anything?
Doesn't sound like a fun job, does it?
What, a steeplejack?
Yeah.
No, first of all, I don't like to climb. I am afraid of heights. So my list of favorite jobs would not include climbing up chimneys to repair or steeples.
But I get it, the harness, the fibers, it all makes sense.
I mean, I think it's where they're basing their theories at, right? Investigators determined that one of the bloodstains found near the home contained an impression made by cloth with denim characteristics. This led authorities to believe the kidnapper wore the jacket. However, investigators thought that the denim jacket was too small for someone who wore size 11 shoes. They're making a lot of assumptions there, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe that.
You can have a skinny person with large feet. You can have some different scenarios there. I guess it depends on how small this jacket is. As a result of the disappearance, the county board hired a crime investigator 6 months after Evelyn disappeared. A.M. Josephson, a former Army investigator and polygraph operator, set about giving lie detector tests to 1,750 male students and teachers at schools in La Crosse County. The Board of Education permitted the tests as long as they were voluntary and didn't interfere with academics.
That is a boatload of people.
It's a lot of polygraph tests too. This guy is going to be very busy. Now, how many people are going to voluntarily do it? All of that. My assumption is back then, probably a lot of people would have. You didn't want to be the person who didn't, right?
But you know who probably didn't volunteer to take it?
Someone who was going to know they were lying?
Yeah.
Someone with involvement? I just thought it was interesting that they focused on male students and teachers. We just got done talking about this denim jacket and them thinking the shoes point towards maybe a machine operator. The jacket is someone who uses a safety harness, maybe a steeplejack or something along those lines. What does that have to do with students and teachers?
Yeah. It's like you're barking up the wrong pole.
Which is a saying that has never been uttered by anyone.
Until today.
Now, barking up the wrong tree is a saying. But like with everything, you got to gibby it up and make it your own.
That's exactly right.
Josephson told the press they had reason to believe the abductor was a young person, but he wouldn't say why. So, that does kind of answer the question, right? Why would they focus on students and teachers? Well, it sounds like they were probably more focused on students if they thought the abductor was a young person. Some of the questions asked were, did you know Evelyn Hartley? Do you know what happened to her? Have you withheld any information about her disappearance?
A solid, good 3 questions. Depending on the answer, then you could take it to the next step.
Yeah, that last one is kind of all-encompassing. Have you withheld any information? What they're not saying is, did you directly, have anything to do with the disappearance of Evelyn Hartley? I would have expected to see maybe a question like that. Investigators plan to show the subjects a photo of the tennis shoes, trousers, and jacket while they took the polygraph. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit of a mind hunter vibe. When they bring out the big rock.
Oh, yeah.
When they're interviewing Gene, I forget what's his name. We did an episode on him on True Crime All the Time, but you can't stop looking at that rock, and it ultimately kind of breaks him.
Yeah.
However, the police faced heavy criticism for their polygraph campaign, and only 300 tests were performed before it came to an end. The young men who did take tests were cleared of any involvement.
So 300 out of the 1750 got tested.
And you would think, who is going to volunteer to take the test unless they have nothing to hide? Now, most likely what they were hoping for was to figure out who refused to take the test, right? Much like the car search. You're not going to look at the ones that says my car is okay. You're looking for anyone who refused to let you look in the trunk. That's who you're going to focus on. Josephson and his team also took the Goodrich tennis shoes and denim jacket to 31 local communities, showing them to about 10,000 people in total. But no one claimed they recognized the items. Well, one thing you can't say is that there was not a lot of work done in this case.
That's for sure. They definitely put the time in on this one. So I'm guessing a lot of people didn't have TVs back then. So this made sense. Let's take them to the communities, lay the clothes out, lay the shoes out, and see if someone says, oh, those are little Bobby Joe Smith's shoes. But 31 places they went, local communities, and no one recognized them? That's not a good...
10,000 people. You know how long it takes to even talk to 10,000 people? I don't, because I would never talk to 10,000 people.
You would never allow it, yeah.
A.M. Josephson tracked down sales records of Whizzer motorbikes, but didn't identify a suspect with this investigative route. He also looked into steeplejacks in the area, but this lead didn't pan out either. What I just thought is, what if the bike I saw on eBay is the Whizzer motorbike that was driven by the suspect?
Could have been.
And now it's for sale.
Buy it.
During the search, Evelyn's parents appealed for anyone with information about their daughter to come forward. They also asked the abductor to come forward. In 1954, her mother received phone calls from two youths who said they could give information about Evelyn in exchange for $500. I had to say two youths very carefully because I didn't want to sound like Joe Pesci.
You kind of did.
I did, even though I tried very hard not to. But how many times do we see this, Gibbs? And it's sickening every time we do.
It is.
If you have information that could help a mother find her lost daughter, you come forward to police and give that information.
Yeah, you don't try to get money out of them.
Right. You don't try to extort a grieving parent. And most likely it's always turns out to be bogus anyway. They worked with the police to set up a trap for the extortionist, and 20-year-old Jack Dufferin and a 13-year-old boy were arrested in August 1954. The police determined Dufferin had no knowledge of Evelyn's kidnapping beyond what was in the papers, as well as his 13-year-old accomplice. But Dufferin was sent to prison in Green Bay, and the boy was sent to a school for boys. And like I said, unfortunately, this is a very common occurrence in high-profile missing persons cases.
It is, and I'm glad they sent them away for a little bit. Teach them a lesson.
It's a horrible thing to do. Now, ultimately, dozens of people would confess to kidnapping Evelyn, but none of the leads ever panned out. And, that's another thing we see. Another thing I don't understand. Number one, why do you have people come out of the woodwork and try to mess with the parents, extort them, fleece money from them? And then number two, why do you always have people coming out and confessing to these crimes that they didn't commit? Now, we don't know how many, if any, of these people were coerced into confessing, or how many people just walked in and said, I did it.
But for the ones that come in just off the street to say, I did it, but didn't do it, that always blows me away.
Yeah, it does me too. Now, we sometimes find out that, they have mental health issues or something like that is causing them to confess. After the first anniversary of Evelyn's disappearance, DA John Bosshard said the tennis shoes were the only tangible clue which could be connected with her abductor. As quoted by the La Crosse Tribune, he said the jacket was of speculative value. So they're not as high on the jacket maybe as they once were.
But they're sticking pretty hard with the shoes.
Yes. Yeah, he called that a tangible clue connected with the abductor. And we didn't talk a lot about the tennis shoes. Goodrich as a brand is really not something I'm familiar with. Goodrich as a tire is something I'm familiar with.
Yeah, big time.
But, I did look it up. I don't know that they still make shoes. They did make shoes back in the day, but I did see some new shoes that have Goodrich soles that essentially look like tire treads. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. You want to get yourself a pair?
No, but they're pretty cool. After a couple of years, the county terminated Josephson's investigator position. And I understand that, right? Years go by. Can you afford to pay this guy forever?
No.
No.
Especially if nothing new's coming in.
Right. You can't afford to investigate a case forever the same way you investigate it early on, because there are new cases. There are new things, flying in that have to be investigated. But then suspected serial killer Ed Gein was arrested on November 16th, 1957, and it caused authorities in La Crosse to wonder if he could have been involved in Evelyn's disappearance. Ed Gein was born in La Crosse, and the Charlie Project reported that he was visiting relatives in La Crosse, just blocks from the Rasmussen home, on the night Evelyn disappeared. Well, I'll tell you this right now. If you have an unsolved disappearance and Ed Gein comes to light and is known to have been in the area, there's a real possibility Ed Gein might have done something.
I would say the odds are pretty heavy.
He was a nasty, nasty individual. On November 18th, 1957, LaCrosse detectives went to Plainfield to question Ed Gein. Numerous sets of human remains were found on his secluded farm property. Only one of the victims found in his home was identified as a person about Evelyn's age. Her hair resembled Evelyn, but not her face. Evelyn's dental records were sent to Washoe County to compare to the remains found on the property. Gein denied that he had ever gone back to LaCrosse since he and his family moved away when he was 7 years old. He claimed he was working on a neighbor's farm near Plainfield at the time of Evelyn's disappearance, and he passed 2 polygraphs. It turned out Evelyn's remains were not found on his property, but he was never fully cleared of being involved in Evelyn's disappearance before his death in 1984.
Be kind of hard to give him the 100% clear, though.
Yeah. I mean, okay, he passed 2 polygraph tests. I get that. The man also made a human skin suit. Right. So, let's not be too quick to take him off the potential suspect list. Evelyn's father retired from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in 1971, and the family moved to Portland. And we mentioned it up front, but both of her parents are deceased. In 1997, the La Crosse Tribune spoke to Janice, the baby Evelyn was watching the night she disappeared. Janice was 45 years old and married at this time, and she asked to keep her married last name private. Janice has no memories of that night, and her family never spoke about it much. It was traumatic for her parents that something so terrible happened in their home. Every anniversary was upsetting for them. They sold their house as quickly as they could after Evelyn went missing. They put bars on the basement windows in their new home. They also never allowed their daughters to babysit as they got older.
So it really did shake the family up.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. And how could it not? Now, it wasn't your daughter that this happened to, but it did happen in your home.
Right. And it's going to be really tough to ever feel safe in your home again.
Yeah, I don't blame them for wanting to move. I also can't see letting my daughters ever babysit if something like that happened, near my family. Janice told the La Crosse Tribune that she felt she was spared that night, saying, "I was one of those kids. They'd put me to bed. I'd get up and down, just play my little games and wouldn't settle down. This had to have been one of the few nights that I went to bed and went to sleep. So I just really feel that I was protected, because who knows what would have happened if I'd have gotten up and heard her screaming. I would have been an easy target for a desperate person. They would have just bumped me off and thought nothing of it, probably. And maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have. I mean, we've done so many cases where very, very small children were spared. Was that because a killer couldn't bring themselves to actually, kill a baby that small? Or was it because they didn't feel that the baby was a threat, that they'd ever be able to identify them or give police any information? 50 years later, there was another potential break in the case. In 2004, a man named Mel Williams read a newspaper story about 3 people who were collaborating on a book about Evelyn's disappearance. The authors appealed for anyone with information to come forward. Williams recalled a tape he made 35 years earlier. He recorded a drunken confession to Evelyn's murder. Williams claimed he took his tape home and forgot all about it until his wife read the article first and asked him about the tape. He found it and turned it over to historian Andy Thompson, one of the authors, who made a CD copy and handed it over to the police. So first of all, how do you tape a confession to a murder and forget about it? That was the first question I had.
I think it'd be difficult to do that.
You just got home, you stuck it in a drawer and completely forgot that this person confessed a murder.
Maybe that night you were drinking. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you do it.
Mel said he recorded the tape around 1968. Now, sources differ slightly on the circumstances surrounding the recording. In January 2004, the La Crosse Tribune reported that he was a musician and was taping a band in a tavern in Lafarge, Wisconsin, called The Raven. However, the Journal Gazette of Mattoon, Illinois, reported in May 2004 that he owned the tavern and was interviewing a local character named Clyde Tywee Peterson, who was described as rough around the edges. I know that's a description that many have given to you over the years.
Rough around the edges?
Rough around the edges.
Yay. I can neither deny or confirm.
Or confirm nor deny.
Exactly.
You say it different every time. So apparently Williams wanted to capture Peterson's personality on tape because, as he said, you couldn't help but like him. He was funny. I wanted to tape him because he was quite a character.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
It's one of the reasons we started this podcast.
Yeah,
so that I would have you on tape for both posterity and possibly evidentiary value. Clyde Peterson associated with a group of men whom Williams called drunk veterans. They frequented his tavern in Lafarge, which is 45 minutes south of La Crosse. Peterson was alone when Williams started the interview, but he was joined by a man named Whitey Barkley, a mink farmer and a big mouth. A mink farmer. You got to get that mink somewhere, I guess.
I've never been out to a mink farm.
Me neither. According to Williams, Barkley said to Peterson, "Tell him about that Hartley girl you kidnapped, Tywee." Peterson admitted to committing the kidnapping with an associate named Jack Gulphair and an unnamed third person. Gulphair either knew of Evelyn and where she was babysitting. He claimed they took her to their friend's farm and Gulphair killed her there. They allegedly buried her south of Lafarge. The La Crosse Tribune reported that the recording ends when a man tells Mel Williams to shut off the tape. He left town a few days later, but again, this conflicts with information from other sources. Jack Gulphair died of suicide in 1967. Clyde Peterson died of a heart attack in September 1974, and the unnamed individual was also dead by 2004. Whitey Barkley was 96 years old, but was suffering from dementia and therefore couldn't provide further information about the tape. So, this tape is kind of amazing. I have no idea, of the validity of the tape or the people speaking on it, if they were being truthful or not. But this is something that you see in so many cases. When these things go back 60, 70 years, okay, the tape might be good, but all the people that were on it, the people that we would need to question, are either dead or 96 years old and suffering from dementia.
Yeah. But when you think about that tape, it's pretty random. I mean, it's just like, if you believe it happened the way that they said it happened, right? That he was at the bar, the guy came up, he just wanted to talk to him because he was interesting, so he records him, and then one of his buddy comes up and says, "Hey, tell him about that one time." If that's true, then
it's a weird story to pull out of your what.
Right.
So you're either just talking up to sound big and bad, or you were, really involved.
Yeah. And so were the people that you named.
But it's also what makes some of these cases so hard to solve, right? By the time you get the information or the authorities get the information, they can't even question these people.
Yeah, the one guy that was said to be the actual killer killed himself a year before the recording was made.
Authorities asked that the exact location of the murder and where they allegedly buried Evelyn remain undisclosed. And I could see why they wouldn't want that disseminated out to the public. If you need to corroborate somebody else's story, well, that information could possibly taint it. Authorities said they may exhume the bodies of the men mentioned in the tape to try to link their DNA with the blood found at the crime scene, and cadaver dogs may be used to locate Evelyn's alleged burial site. However, the reported location was in a Mississippi River floodplain, and the body likely washed away years earlier if it had been there. Now, based on a lack of recent updates, it seems as though this lead did not pan out. And that's always a struggle as well. They had blood, but was that good enough to get a DNA sample? Were they able to exhume the bodies, get a DNA sample to compare? Or did they decide that it was going to be too expensive? They couldn't afford it, or they needed to use the resources somewhere else. All of that's hard to figure out because if you don't see any reporting on it, you kind of assume it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But you don't know why because they didn't report on it.
Yeah, because there's no information out there about it.
2023 marked 70 years since Evelyn went missing. Her case remains unsolved and her remains have never been found, much to the frustration of investigators. If you have any information about the disappearance of Evelyn Hartley, you can call the La Crosse Police Department at 608-785-5962. So as we wrap up this case, Gibbs, obviously this tape, even though it came out many, many years later, it's hard not to think that there's a potential there for this, kind of shedding light on what happened to Evelyn Hartley. The bad thing is that it came out so late that people were dead, couldn't be talked to by the time, it came to light.
But why did they take her? If they were the ones that had taken her. Why?
Yeah, I think, motive is tough. It was said that one of the guys either knew Evelyn or knew of her and where she was babysitting. So if that was true, it could potentially mean that she was targeted, right? This wasn't a random break-in. They found her and took her. They knew who she was, where she was going to be, and she was targeted for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Did one of these guys develop a fixation, an obsession on this girl? We just don't know. But if not these guys, then there's really not much to go on. It could have been someone else who, targeted her. Or it could have been a random type thing. What leads me against the randomness is that the house wasn't burglarized.
Right.
So it almost makes it seem as though someone in the house was the target, not valuables, not anything inside the home. Someone was looking for a person. Now, were they specifically looking for Evelyn or just anyone?
Anyone, yeah. And maybe it was Ed Gein. Maybe.
I never take Ed Gein off the table.
No.
Ever. But that's it for our episode on the disappearance of Evelyn Hartley. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. This is Javelia from Germany, and I was just listening to your podcast about Ben Kita, and I wanted to say something about that case. Before I say it, I want to mention that I'm originally from Pakistan, which is like a very, I don't know how I should put it, very Muslim country. And I'm saying this thing very carefully because I don't want to hurt anybody's family sentiments. But I believe after hearing the whole episode, everything to me points out to the fact that there was something going on with this young boy. There was something bothering him. He wasn't attending college, and he was clearly hiding things from his family. And the fact that he left keys and everything points to the fact that he took his own life, but his family, the way they were not willing to accept. I think it is because, and I have personally witnessed it in many cases that happened during my time in Pakistan, that the very harsh views of Islam about taking your own life, it's because it's absolutely forbidden. And and because of this fact, there's a lot of shame associated with this act within Muslim community, that I believe the family was doing everything in their power to not accept that maybe Ben took his own life. And even if they knew within themselves, they just didn't want to say it openly, or they wanted somebody to tell them that he didn't do it because of how harshly Islam, or how strictly Islam says that you cannot take your own life because God gave you this life and only He can take it back from you. So I believe that's why police did everything they could. Still, the family was not happy with the investigation. Anyways, I really, really, really like both of you. Gibby is really, really funny. And I don't know what it means, but please keep your own time ticking. Bye.
Okay, so that was a longer voicemail. So I only recorded one, but I wanted to play it because, she was able to provide some good insight.
Absolutely.
And we always like that. People from other cultures, religions, providing insight on the cases that we do. And I thought she made some really valid points.
She did.
Now, we still don't know what happened, but that could absolutely be true. What she was saying, her theory.
And you got to be open to that.
Yeah, you have to be open to that.
And she's right. I'm very, very funny.
One thing I will say is you are a legend in your own mind.
My own mind.
Oh, but that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Are you feeling stuck in your career or lacking employment at the moment? Experiencing symptoms of job dissatisfaction? You might be suffering from a common condition known as career stagnation. But don't worry, there's a solution. Monster.com. Monster.com offers a comprehensive suite of career-boosting tools designed just for you. Our free resume review and AI interview prep tool will help you stand out from the crowd. Need more guidance? Dive into our career advice articles for expert tips and insights. And don't forget to check out our salary tools to ensure you're getting paid what you're worth. Side effects may include a new job, increased confidence, and a brighter future. Consult Monster.com today and take the first step towards your new career. Ready for your next job opportunity? Visit Monster.com now.